This is from Song of Solomon. He is my home in this world, and I am his, said Ruth. And he wouldn't give a pile of swan shit for either one of you. That's Pilate. And I think, like, who on earth besides Morrison would think pile of swan shit? Right? Like, who thinks about swan shit? Like, for me, that's a little bit why Morrison is awesome. Because she thinks in ways that no one else would, but she makes the point that, like, we can all understand.
So what draws me to Toni Morrison's work is the clarity of the writing and how she chooses every word exactly to fit where she's going. She shows women who have not been given voices before have survived. Her characters are strong.
When Toni Morrison was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1993, she became the first Black woman to receive the award in its 92-year history. This honor was given in recognition of her, who in novels characterized by visionary force and poetic import, gives life to an essential aspect of American reality. She illustrates this reality in her 11 novels, from Lorain, Ohio in The Bluest Eye, to Outside Cincinnati after the Civil War in Beloved, to Virginia in Song of Solomon. She gives life to these represented realities by facing both trauma and beauty in equal measure. Although her fiction stretches far beyond her personal experiences, Morrison's own life comes to the forefront of her nonfiction when she reflects on her family. In an essay called A Slow Walk of Trees, as grandmother would say, hopeless, as grandfather would say, she begins with her grandfather.
He, John Solomon Willis, was an unreconstructed Black pessimist who, in spite of or because of emancipation, was convinced for 85 years that there would be no hope whatever for Black people in this country.
In many ways, Morrison is her grandfather's legacy. They each looked at the space that Black Americans occupy and interpreted it from different positions. But Morrison's grandmother had a different approach.
It was she, Ardelia Willis, who sneaked her 7 children out of the back window into the darkness, rather than permit the patron of their sharecropper's existence to become their executioner as well. For she would see what she expected to see, not the occasional historical repetition, but, like the slow walk of certain species of trees from the flatlands up into the mountains, she would see the signs of irrevocable and permanent change.
Morrison also carries her grandmother's legacy and her connection to the Midwest, where Ardelia Willis brought her family. The Midwest emerges in Morrison's work as both a literary origin and historical context.
Beloved. It's a really great novel for thinking about the importance of slavery to this state, even though this state was not a slave state, right? It's important to the formation of Ohio identity, right? That we were just over the line. And it's not even in a simple way of like, oh, we're free territory and we're the progressive ones because no, actually Ohio I think has a really complicated relationship to slavery and to race, and I think that Morrison captures that in Beloved, and therefore Beloved makes a great introduction to Ohio. And to stand in that place and look at the river and know that that is the river that so many crossed, but also that that is the river, right, that Setha crossed, or that Margaret Garner crossed, right? That was a profound moment in terms of sense of place.
The Midwest, we are tough. And we have to survive winter. We work hard. We work. I worked through to college. She went to Howard, but she used to make carrot cake and sell it to get by for extra money. We work for what we get.
As Morrison grew up, she was quickly singled out for her intelligence. Her third-grade teacher wrote home to say, "You and your husband would be remiss in your duties if you do not see to it that this child goes to college." Morrison attended Howard University from 1949 to 1953, and later returned to teach for 7 years. It was there that she learned to turn her interior life outward and to use narrative as a political statement.
She was in drama at Howard, and she went to Florida in the summer with the drama Howard, and of course they couldn't stay at any hotels. And she thought, oh my gosh, this is real life, right, in that sense. But she interacted with a lot of people who were very, very powerful at the time. So she had that background. And when she went to learn to write, she was, told, write what you know in this small group, and that's what got her started.
Leaving academia, she became an editor for Random House in the 1960s and 70s. While there, she aided the development of the Black Book, which re-examines the history of Black people in America from the time of slavery to the 1970s. It compiles artifacts that Morrison, her co-editors, and contributors felt had been left behind by the white gaze for over 300 years of history.
We tend to think of her largely in terms of her work as a novelist, but part of what she was dedicated to was making sure that others, scholars, intellectuals, and writers, creative writers, that their words got put forward. I think she has a larger project, and it's not just sort of, I will entertain people with my wonderful fiction. It's, I will promote Black writers, scholars, and intellectuals, and encourage people to think about sort of race and culture in the U.S.
Historians must speak in generalities. They habitually leave out life lived by everyday people. History for them is what great men have done. But artists don't have any such limitation, and as the truest of historians, they are obligated not to.
To some extent, sort of edgy when she started doing it, was to insist that writing about Black people as people, and not necessarily sort of about their Blackness per se, was a thing. Like, well, of course I should just write about the people that I know, the people who are my people. Like, of course I would just write a story about Black people, and then another story.
Morrison's drive to rewrite history helped define her career. She confronts instances of racial trauma in her novels, like destructive beauty standards in The Bluest Eye and the legacy of slavery in Beloved. By telling these stories, by being a Black woman who writes about Black women, she acknowledges realities and voices that are not commonly heard.
Guileless and without vanity, we were still in love with ourselves then. We felt comfortable in our own skins, enjoyed the news that our senses released to us, admired our dirt, cultivated our scars, and could not comprehend this unworthiness.
Based on one of Morrison's own childhood memories, The Bluest Eye echoes the prayers of a little girl Morrison used to know. She lost her belief in God because she had prayed without answer for blue eyes. Set in Lorain, Ohio, Morrison intimately details life for the Black families that the novel centers on. The racialized history of beauty captivates Morrison's first novel, as young Pecola Breedlove begs for blue eyes while carrying her father's child. Morrison asks us to grapple with an uneasy question. How can you love in a world that has taught you that you are unlovable?
I can appreciate its brilliance. It's too painful for me, because I think part of its achievement is that it can actually make you sort of sympathetic to a person who commits incestuous rape. And like, that is not a position I ever really want to be in. Like, I don't want to be sympathetic to Charlie. I don't want to understand why. I would really like to be able to write him off as a monster, and she does not let you do that. One of the things that keeps drawing me back to Morrison, one of the things that I think is her achievement, is that she does create these incredibly painful novels, and yet the beauty keeps us hooked in.
The Black Book, and her own books, like The Bluest Eye, as well as her nonfiction and recorded public appearances, are all foundational in showing how Morrison lives her life, doing language, and challenging the measures by which we live our lives.